Okay, hello, and thanks for joining us today. Martina, could you introduce yourself briefly?
So I'm Martina Tyriseva. I come from Switzerland, from Geneva, but I'm half from Croatia and half from Finland. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Yeah. And so here, could you explain what you're doing here?
In Japan, I came to do a doctoral thesis about Ainu education and indigenous people's education.
Oh, okay. So can you also explain briefly your background, meaning educational background, and also maybe what you did in your country as a job, something like that.
Okay, so as a university background, I have studied in Geneva University, Japanese and religion history, and in Neuchâtel University, I have studied anthropology as my major subject. And as a work that I have done during several years, it was translating, interpreting for migrants for the Red Cross.
For the Red Cross?
Of Geneva, yes.
Wow. Wow. So how many languages do you speak?
8.
8. Could you count? I mean, could you tell us
1,
what?
2, 3. So from my childhood, I speak Croatian, Finnish, and French. Then I learned English, German, and Italian, and Mongolian and Japanese.
Good.
I have to improve my Japanese, but still.
So, could you tell us what interested you in Japanese and Japanese culture first?
First, it was probably the kanji. So I was interested in learning one language that I could not read with my European languages. So it was the first introduction at the university of Japanese professors.
So he was Japanese. He was Japanese.
Not all of them, but one of the senseis was even two. We had 2 Japanese professors. Yes, and. They gave me just the wish to study that language, and then I discovered as well the culture, and my mother also, when she was from her, I think, she always wanted to go to Japan, so somehow I heard about Japan from my childhood already.
So your mother had any of Japanese things, or Japanese pictures, or Japanese doll or something?
We do have a beautiful, like a Japanese, maybe a screen, or I don't know how
Really?
you would call it. Yes, we do have one, which is called Aki-iro, like the colors of autumn. And yeah, this one is really beautiful.
Okay.
So,
That's why you get interested in Japanese first.
maybe one of the reasons, but
Okay.
yes.
And in the process of learning Japanese at the university, your interest grew, or?
Oh yes, of course. And we had not only the language, but we had also many lessons about the culture and religion and the history of Japan. So it made like a wide view from the Japanese society and country. And then I also discovered there was like senjumin. There was the Ainu population also living here in Hokkaido.
Yeah.
And as I have a strong interest for indigenous people, so it was a nice discovery somehow for me. And I got interested in Ainu people and culture and language, and so I made a few small reports about Ainu during my also academic years.
So you just because of your interest in Ainu people, you decided to come to Hokkaido, or how you ended up coming to Hokkaido?
The first time, it was 5 years ago, I already had this interest to come to visit the museums in Hakodate and Abashiri, so that was my first contact with Hokkaido. But then my professor in Geneva told me that Geneva University and Hokkaido University do have agreements for students. Exchange, yes. So I had the opportunity to come to Hokkaido, and my professor knew my interest also about Ainu, and so I found out that there was a center for Ainu and indigenous people's studies, and I applied to get in that center. So through the Hokudai Bungakubu, Faculty of Letters, I could get an internship for my research in that center.
Oh, okay. How long are you gonna study?
I will stay here. I had the great chance to receive the Monbuka Gakusho grant, so for 2 years from now on.
Great. So how long have you been here?
I have been already 6 months, but I came a little before just to have like an introduction and to prepare already my research field before being officially here.
So you already did some field works and stuff. So where have you been?
I have traveled a lot in Hokkaido. To Abashiri, to Shiraoi, Birkakotan, Asahikawa, Mukawa, Urakawa, Nibutani also, of course. And, yes, it's a great area, and I will do quite a lot of field work there, I think. But yes, actually, with the center also, the center is so active, the Ainu Senjumin Kenkyu Center is so active in different projects, and so that we have the opportunity to meet many people from all these regions, but also to go on the field. And that's just a great place to be.
Really? Do you see any similarity of Ainu culture to other those people in Europe, for example, Sami people? Or?
Yes, there are similarities, and actually I'm doing a comparative analysis.
You do?
Yes, between Sami from Finland and Ainu here in Japan, and also I'm trying to see how to involve also Duha minority in the northern of Mongolia, north of Mongolia, and probably I'll add to my research also Maori education, because they are quite well developed in that field. So I think all the indigenous peoples, even if they have different backgrounds, different historical backgrounds, and they live in different political systems, I think the main concerns of indigenous peoples are very similar. Education, keeping the language alive, keeping traditions and transmitting the culture. So, and then there are of course many other concerns about rights and land rights, etc. But I'm more concerned about the culture now.
So, how you can explain the situation of Ainu people here now? Kind of big question, sorry. And what kind of stage we are to keep their culture or develop their culture?
I think one of the biggest change that has occurred last year, it was the recognition of Ainu people as indigenous people of Japan. So that's one of the main changes nowadays. And from that point, I think Ainu culture and Ainu people can begin to somehow come out and realize, be conscious of their identity, and many projects on the national and local level have to be implemented as the one from education. And I think the actual situation is that Ainu people live in a very similar way to Japanese people, actually, because of the history and the background of that people, but they still keep the knowledge of their language in somehow at schools. They do teach it, and this one you will take off because I have to mixing up.
That's okay.
Yeah, what should I say?
But
yeah, I think they are still now they are revitalizing their culture, and it's really a time where they can undertake something to keep their language, to transmit it, because many people also don't speak it anymore, but they are learning it, and we have to find one way how to teach Ainu language at schools.
Right.
So
you think we already took an important step toward developing that, system or organization anyhow to keep their culture?
I think the big step was to recognize Ainu people as indigenous peoples. Now it's step by step. I think there is no big step that can be made because it takes time, and you have to first. There are no teachers, many teachers of Ainu language, so it's not enough, and we have to teach teachers to be teachers. And
we don't have any teachers, right?
There's very few.
But there are.
There are.
Really?
Yes. And many people think that there are no more Ainu people, but there are, and there are different. We were talking with a friend the other day, but there are different Ainu people as well. There are some that are conscious of their identity, some that are not conscious of their identity, some that are half Ainu, some that are saying they're Ainu, some that don't say, that are hiding their identity just because of some discrimination reasons. So there are many levels of being Ainu and many different kinds of identities, and I think that's nowadays picture that we can have. And I think when we think about Ainu people, we have a lot of stereotypes. But they are living the 21st century's life, and on the other hand, they are trying to revitalize the knowledge of their ancestors and some kind of handwork and ceremonies and rituals and revitalizing the language. But next to that, they live the nowadays life of every Japanese person. So I think they are also evaluating with that, and we have to take that, of course, into consideration, not to make the stereotype. But it's a nice way to keep tradition as well.
Oh, so could you try some of our Ainu language?
So first of all, maybe Iran Karapte.
Oh, yeah.
That means nice to meet you, hello. And maybe that's for now. Rirai Kire, thank you for listening to this, and at the end maybe I will say Suyun Karanro, but not for now.
That's really amazing, for us, because we don't know much about our Ainu language. So now here you are, and you can speak.
I don't speak. I have a friend or a few friends that can. They don't say they speak, but I believe they could speak because they are really good in Ainu language. But through them and through my colleague, I can learn a lot. So I just know a few words for now. I hope learning more, and I hope we can begin to communicate in Ainu language. That would be one first step to revitalize the language, for example. So we do sometimes send messages in Ainu language as well.
Okay, well, so now could we talk about the life here? Do you enjoy your research work here?
Very, very much. Actually, I like Sapporo very much since the first day I arrived here. I don't know what happened, but I came out of the train station, Eki, and it was just some kind of feeling that I like this town. It was very peaceful, very quiet. And it still is. It's a huge town. I never thought it would be so big. And compared to Geneva, which is a small town in
Geneva is small?
It is small compared to Sapporo, yes. In Sapporo you have how many? 2 million?
2 million, almost.
Almost 2 million inhabitants. In Geneva we have maybe 400,000. So it's a huge difference. And I thought going from Chuoku to the Hoku to the university, I thought that was Sapporo because it was actually the same walking time than from my home to the university in Geneva.
Really?
Going from one part or the other to the other of the town. But actually here I discovered going to Maruyama Koen that from above I saw the huge city. So, but you don't feel it when you live here, and that's what I like in Sapporo, because there is a lot of nature, people are very kind and very how do you say? They welcome you in a very, very nice way, and it's very easy to live here. Actually,
Really?
Yes.
Well, I
You
was going to ask you, what kind of difficulty you have, living here, but
the only thing is that it could be closer to Europe, so it would be nice to be sometimes able to go for a weekend in Europe. But on the other hand, it's very nice here.
Really?
Yes.
Well, and so now you're learning Japanese language.
Yes, I do. And what I wanted also to say that in the center where I'm doing my research, everybody welcomed me in such a nice way that it's really a pleasure to go every day to work.
Really?
It's incredible. And sometimes I do hear people have less contact with their teachers, or they have sometimes bad experience also being in Japan. But I think I'm very lucky.
Yeah, you
because
ever
nice.
heard of any bad experience of other
I
people?
did, yes. Some people do have more difficulties to get involved in that Japanese life and to have more contact with Japanese people. But maybe it's also due to the field I'm working in, because we are all working with people, so it's easy to communicate, and that's maybe why. And
Yes. That's good.
Yes, and learning Japanese, on the other hand, it's also the contact with foreign people. And it allows you also to progress in reading and in talking to people. So I will need Japanese also for my research, of course, to read books and to make interviews with people. So it's a great combination of everything. And the campus at the university is just beautiful.
Yeah, just beautiful. Well, because you have, of course, been in a couple of universities. Compared with them, Hokudai has a good facilities, you think?
I think, yes, great facilities.
Really?
And a beautiful park. It reminds me on the park of Geneva, Daigaku, but in much bigger extent, because you need half an hour to get from one side of Hokudai to the other.
Yeah,
in
true.
Geneva it takes 10 minutes. So, but great facilities, yes.
Wow. You mentioned your future dream before, and could you tell us about your dream in the future?
Yes, I would love to work for Indigenous Peoples Matters, and education, I think, is one thematic that can be applied everywhere, and that will be still necessary for the future. So as I have been welcomed in so many places by Indigenous people and before doing research, and I know them as friends and as families, so I really, somehow with my background that I had the opportunity to learn, to study, and I would like to give them something of this opportunity that I had, and that not all of them could have. So if I can somehow try to help a little bit and do something in their sense for human rights and for Indigenous people's rights and for their culture, and then I would like to do it.
That's great. Great. Yeah. Whenever I am going to go out this country, I mean going to abroad, I get really nervous, and sometimes I just feel sick even. And but you don't have that problem, I think. And so, what is the secret of?
Maybe it's because I come from 3 different cultures since my childhood. So my mother comes from Croatia, my father from Finland. I was born in Geneva, which is also an international town. So I think I have been traveling my whole life to visit my family in Croatia and in Finland, and growing up in an international city as Geneva, multicultural. I think somehow I feel at home everywhere. Maybe nowhere as well, but I can adapt everywhere I go. And I love meeting people, so it helps a lot.
But you never felt any danger or any...
Coming to Japan?
coming to Japan? No, not necessarily coming to Japan, but when you are abroad, foreign countries, you felt always you feel safe.
Usually, yes.
Oh, okay. That's great.
Yeah, because I think, yes, as I told you before about Mongolia, but I think I believe in people somehow. Maybe it's some naive state of mind, but I think as human being, if you need help, another human being will come to help you. Of course, there are many kinds of people in that world, but there is always someone good next to you as well. So it's just, if you like people, there cannot be something bad.
So you think a majority of people are good or minority are good?
Maybe with age I discover not majority is good, but still I think, yes. I always, my first thought is always to think someone is good. And if someone is bad, I always think there must be a reason. Human being is not bad is not born bad. So there is always some background that makes a person behaving in a less good way, I would say like this. But I like people, and I believe everyone has a good side inside of him or her.
Wow. You can. We now know you can speak 8 languages, and so and you now are learning Japanese. I think. And what could be your advice for people here to learn foreign languages, including English? How you can be that fluent in many languages?
I think the best way is really to be in the place where that language is spoken. So, for example, maybe for Japanese people, because traveling to Europe or America is quite far away, but there are closer countries like New Zealand or Australia maybe that are also English-speaking countries, and that would be maybe one of the best ways to get used to those languages. I think for me Japanese was the most difficult because it took a long time before I could come to Japan, and it's very personal, but for me I need to hear the language, to use it in everyday life, to be able to learn it. Yes. Not on the paper. Yes. So
you have to get involved in.
Yes. I think it's the best way. And then Mongolian, I studied it writing and repeating hundreds of times the same word just to be able to pronounce it. Then it depends, yes, how much you get involved in the language. Maybe a love of communication.
Yeah.
Yes, then that's one good point maybe to learn languages.
Do you have any message for Japanese people?
Yes, maybe one of. I'm so grateful of the way everyone has taken care of me here and welcomed me here. So, of a message, it would be gratitude and a big domo arigatou gozaimasu.
Yeah. Well, likewise, thanks very much.
And welcome to Europe as well. So,
really?
Yes, I hope Japanese people have also the opportunity to visit other countries because traveling and meeting people, it opens our mind as well and the heart.
Yeah, that's good. That's wonderful idea, I think. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us today. And,
Thank you.